On this Tuesday night, banned. Why one of Canada's most decorated Olympians is not being allowed to compete for 2 years.
We treat athletes quite strictly.
He built a career centered on his Indigenous ancestry, but author Thomas King now admits he's not Indigenous at all. How the truth was revealed. Amplifying anger in Alberta.
We can't just sit back and trust a government that we've trusted for 70 years.
The growing campaigns to recall more than a dozen UCP MLAs. Plus, she was a curling rock star, accomplished broadcaster, and she touched the lives of everyone who knew her. Remembering Colleen Jones.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. One of Canada's most decorated Olympians has been handed a 2-year ban from competition by the International Testing Agency. Penny Oleksiak, who has won 7 Olympic medals for swimming, has accepted the suspension. She has not tested positive for any banned substance, but has failed to follow the strict rules of the anti-doping code, which require submitting a certain number of filings and tests within a 12-month period. Eric Sorensen explains what it means for Oleksiak and for Canada's national swim team.
She won an Olympic gold medal at the age of 16. Now, at 25, Penny Oleksiak's swimming future is at best uncertain. The 7-time Olympic medalist has been suspended by the International Testing Agency for violating obligations to provide her whereabouts 3 times. The agency states the purpose is to allow anti-doping organizations to locate athletes for unannounced out-of-competition testing. She committed 3 whereabouts failures within a 12-month period. Penelope Oleksiak has accepted a 2-year period of ineligibility. A spokesperson for Oleksiak confirmed the suspension, stating, "This matter is not related to drug use. Penny is and has always been a clean athlete. She remains committed to her goals and looks forward to competing again once her suspension is complete."
I like to just catch my breath.
Oleksiak quickly became one of Canada's most popular athletes after her stunning Olympic performances. The whereabouts policy is to ensure fairness for all athletes, says this expert who has investigated doping in sports.
They're absolutely essential that you have out-of-competition testing so that athletes can't plan ahead knowing that they're going to be tested.
But it is an onerous process to have one's whereabouts under constant monitoring.
It's tricky because we treat athletes quite strictly in this regard in society.
And, says Angela Schneider, the urine tests themselves are highly invasive.
Athletes' rights to privacy are given up for this, and they do it because they want to try to help to maintain a level playing field.
The ban from competition will be in place until July 2027, a big setback for an athlete in her prime.
It is a big deal. It takes her out of competition. She can't train under the national team while she's under suspension, so she'll have to sort of do her own work in the meantime until she's eligible again.
If Oleksiak does intend to resume swimming competitively in 2027, she would have 1 year to prepare for the Summer Olympics in 2028. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
A prominent Canadian-American author who has long claimed Indigenous ancestry has been exposed as having none at all. Thomas King revealed he has no Cherokee roots in an opinion piece he wrote for a newspaper, saying he feels as though he's been ripped in half. But a group that investigates people who falsely claim Indigenous heritage say they confronted him about his roots some time ago. Melissa Ridgen has the story.
The headline said it all. Thomas King, who has made a career writing books about lived experience as a First Nations man, is not Indigenous at all. King broke the news Monday in a Globe and Mail column, saying he learned he's not Cherokee as he's always claimed, crediting the U.S.-based Tribal Alliance Against Fraud for tracing his ancestry and finding none. The literary world was quick to respond. Anishinaabe author Wab Rice posting, "This is the 3rd time someone I've either looked up to or worked with in the lit world has been outed as a pretendian." Stolo journalist Robert Jago saying, "We've all known for years," adding none of us wanted to do it, referring to making the information public, as it would feel like curb stomping Mr. Rogers. The Tribal Alliance Against Fraud takes issue with King's column.
We came to him, we confronted him with the truth, not the other way around. I suggested to him that he offer an apology as an ally to say, "I'm sorry that I didn't do my own due diligence decades ago because I should have known myself by now that I'm not Cherokee."
King has said he will return the Companion Order of Canada he received for contributions to the preservation and recognition of Indigenous culture. But his books, written through the lens of a First Nations man who isn't, live on.
He's certainly not giving back any monetary awards he received, while writing as an Indigenous writer with an Indigenous content.
Interview requests made through King's literary agent went unanswered. King is the latest in a growing list of high-profile authors, artists, and academics who turn out to be not actually Indigenous. Samaganess hopes public awareness also grows.
It results in billions of dollars of misallocated resources and roles and spaces from the Indigenous community each year. Not in total, every year, billions of dollars. And I think the public really needs to be educated on this. We really need a lot more awareness. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
Canada's Prime Minister is expected to be in Calgary on Thursday, and there's lots of speculation pipelines will be on the agenda. The premiers of Alberta and Saskatchewan are pushing hard to build another line to get Alberta oil to the BC coast, though BC's premier is not on board. Today, Prime Minister Mark Carney acknowledged BC and First Nations have to agree. Mackenzie Gray is following the story again tonight. Mackenzie.
After his Natural Resources Minister had said BC won't get a veto over a pipeline, Donna, Mark Carney appeared to reopen the door for the BC government to be able to shoot down a potential oil pipeline to its northwest coast.
The memorandum of understanding that we're negotiating with Alberta creates necessary conditions but not sufficient conditions because we believe in cooperative federalism. We believe the government of British Columbia has to agree. We believe that First Nations right holders in this country have to agree.
As it stands now, the BC government does not agree, labeling it unacceptable that they've been left out of talks.
We're talking about a project that has no proponent, has no route, has no possibility because of the massive cost it would entail.
While BC can hold things up through provincial consultations and permitting, Ottawa has the final approval of any interprovincial pipeline project, a point the Conservative leader hammered home.
That on Thursday, he will not sign on to a new pipeline. He will sign on to a public relations stunt while planning to hide behind the Premier of BC and abdicating his unique constitutional responsibilities.
Carney will be in Calgary Thursday, where he's expected to announce an agreement with Danielle Smith. Alberta likely accepting a stronger industrial carbon tax and building a carbon capture and storage facility as conditions of a potential new pipeline, a major political risk for Carney and the 20 Liberal BC MPs.
The condition is must have a consent of the Premier of British Columbia and the First Nation.
First Nations consent a long way off, with multiple Indigenous communities along any potential route vehemently opposed to a pipeline. But there is another option. The BC government now says they're willing to support adding additional capacity to the Trans Mountain pipeline and will dredge near the Vancouver harbour to allow for more Alberta oil to head to Asia.
BC is offering you about 500,000 barrels a day of more oil through the province to the West Coast and to other markets. Take it.
Mackenzie's with me now. Mackenzie, apart from pipelines, Mark Carney is also managing the turbulent relationship with the U.S. president. And today he admitted he made a mistake in something he said on the weekend.
Yeah, he did, Donna. The Prime Minister's office often doesn't tell journalists when Carney talks with Donald Trump. And when he was asked when the last time they spoke, the Prime Minister was rather dismissive in South Africa.
Who cares? I mean, it's a detail. It's a detail. I spoke to him. I'll speak to him again when it matters. But I don't have a burning issue to speak with the president about right now.
Well, the opposition certainly cared, Donna. The Liberals getting hammered online and during question for the opposition, leading to this backtrack.
I made a promise to Canadians. When I make a mistake, I'll admit it. That was a poor choice of words about a serious issue.
Now, being the best person to handle the Canada-U.S. issue was the key issue for Carney getting elected, but it really hasn't worked out so far. Trump has called off trade talks, and in a bid to try and get things going again, Carney's office says he's thinking about going to Washington next week for the FIFA World Cup draw, where he's likely to see the president. Carney's also scheduled to have a press conference on Wednesday, Donna. The topic, help for Canadian businesses hit by U.S. tariffs.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray, thank you. There could be trouble ahead for the Alberta United Conservative government. 14 recall petitions against UCP MLAs have been approved, and signatures are being gathered from voters. Those behind the petitions hope to trigger by-elections. The bar is high for success, but as Heather Yurex-West reports, momentum appears to be building.
Jenny Yeremy and her team have about 12,000 more signatures to collect before their MLA, Alberta Education Minister Dimitrios Nikolaides, is recalled.
I'm just so thrilled that people have stepped up to do this. I think this is Alberta growing up. I think it's us realizing we can't just sit back and trust a government that we've trusted for 70 years.
Recall Nikolaides is one of 14 recall campaigns launched in the aftermath of the government's use of the notwithstanding clause to end a 3.5-week-long teacher strike. Each recall campaign needs to collect signatures totaling 60% of the votes cast in the last provincial election.
And so if that petition is then deemed successful, the Lieutenant Governor in Council would order a recall vote. If 50% or more answer that question with yes, that MLA would lose their seat, and then a by-election would have to be called.
Right now, the United Conservative Party has 47 of the 87 seats in the Alberta legislature. 2 former party members now sit as independents, and the remaining 38 seats are held by the NDP. If all 14 recall petitions successfully triggered a by-election, it would put Danielle Smith's majority government on the line.
This is clearly a case of a left-wing activist group, Alberta Resistance, that is using recall, that is weaponizing it to force a general election.
It's obvious with the amount that are coming forward right now that it's being used as a tool to destabilize government because certain individuals disagree with government policy.
We're seeing the government respond, lashing out essentially at the process which they had established. I think because they understand that this is a sign that the government may be in trouble electorally in the next provincial election.
The Alberta Premier has said she's talking to her caucus about making changes to the Recall Act as the campaign against members of her government gains ground. Heather Yurex-West, Global News, Calgary.
Stirring up trouble. Coming up, a Campbell Soup executive is accused of mocking his customers. Ukraine's president says he's ready to move forward with a U.S.-backed peace deal with Russia, but Volodymyr Zelenskyy says the most sensitive points need to be discussed with the U.S. president in talks that should include European allies. Donald Trump has said he will only meet with Putin and Zelenskyy when it reaches its final stages. Redmond Shannon reports on roadblocks that remain.
A night of airstrikes from both sides in this war, but as ever felt most severely in Ukraine, with more civilian deaths across Kyiv.
I'm ready to meet with President Trump, and there are sensitive points to discuss.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy met with allies about ending the war, including Prime Minister Mark Carney and French President Emmanuel Macron.
But the absolute condition for a good peace is a set of very robust security guarantees and not paper guarantees.
The allies now working off a significantly modified version of the US-backed peace plan released last week. That original document, seen as unacceptable to Ukraine, heavily favoured the Kremlin's goals. Also on Tuesday, US Army Secretary Dan Driscoll again met with Russian negotiators in Abu Dhabi, likely discussing the differences between the two drafts on topics like territory and Ukraine joining NATO. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov suggested any changes would impact the Kremlin's willingness to stop the war.
So I think we're getting very close to a deal. We'll find out.
US President Donald Trump says he has directed his special envoy Steve Witkoff to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow.
Both parties need to somehow signal and imitate some degree of progress, but this is where that feeling of a bit of a Groundhog Day comes back, because we've been here before.
France says it will join the UK and Turkey, with involvement from the US, to start planning a reassurance force to support any future peace deal. When it comes to Canadian involvement, well, Canada's Department of National Defence did not supply a response to a Global News question about that before we went to air. Donna?
All right, Redmond Shannon in London, thank you. Staff at a Buddhist temple in Thailand got quite the shock when a woman brought in for cremation started moving. The temple posted this. The woman believed to be dead was clearly not. The manager says they opened her coffin after hearing a faint knock. The woman's brother, they say, had not provided a death certificate. He told the temple she'd been bedridden for 2 years and appeared to stop breathing 2 days before. The temple is now covering her medical expenses. A top Campbell Soup company executive has been put on leave after a lawsuit revealed comments he's alleged to have made, calling the company's product unhealthy and mocking the people who eat it. A wrongful termination lawsuit reportedly includes audio of Campbell's vice president, Martin Bally, going on an expletive-filled rant, allegedly calling the company's products shit for poor people and making racist remarks about Indian employees. The former worker behind the lawsuit says he was fired after reporting the behavior. Campbell calls the comments unacceptable and not reflective of the company's values. Ahead, escalating tensions, the growing signs the U.S. may be about to launch a military operation on Venezuela. There are growing signs the U.S. may be on the cusp of launching military action against Venezuela. Top U.S. military officials are in the region this week, and there is an unprecedented American military buildup. As Jackson Prosco explains, the Trump administration has set the stage by designating Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his government allies as members of a foreign terrorist organization.
The buildup in the Caribbean is unmistakable. 1/4 of the entire U.S. Navy is now perched off the coast of Venezuela, including the world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford. Airspace is heavily restricted. Most flights into Venezuela are canceled. Only U.S. President Donald Trump knows what will happen next.
I don't rule out anything. We just have to take care of Venezuela.
As Venezuela's military shows off its own defenses, President Nicolas Maduro is openly daring the Americans to make their move. However they do it, wherever they do it, they will not be able to defeat Venezuela. We are invincible, he told state TV. The U.S. will only say it's preparing a new phase of operations targeting the Maduro government, going far beyond the unprecedented strikes on alleged drug boats. The Trump administration has designated the Venezuelan Cartel de las Soles a foreign terrorist organization, accusing Maduro and his top officials of leading a sprawling criminal enterprise. Venezuela's foreign ministry rejects the accusation.
Clearly, the designation of Cartel de los Soles is, as a foreign terrorist organization, is trying to further lay the groundwork and also to try to rattle and scare Maduro.
The unspoken goal seems to be regime change, whether through coercion or by force. Covert American operations inside Venezuela may come first. Airstrikes could follow. Military analysts don't believe there will be a full-scale ground invasion.
Right now in the region, we have about 10,000 troops. That's not nearly enough to engage in any kind of invasion of Venezuelan territory.
Though Trump insists he's still willing to talk to Maduro, there seems to be little left to discuss. The signs all point to a decision that's already been made, with American troops massed and awaiting their final orders. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
She was a curling champ and a first-class broadcaster. Next, remembering Colleen Jones. There's sad news about a world champion Canadian curler and longtime broadcaster. Colleen Jones has died at the age of 65. Her son Luke shared the news today, posting, "Mom had been fighting and trying to beat back cancer over the last 3 years or so. Please think of your favorite Colleen Jones moment. Cherish it. Hurry and love hard." She won her first Canadian curling championship at the age of 22, and her infectious, sparkling personality burst through the screen during her many years at the CBC. Heidi Petracek on the life and legacy of Colleen Jones.
For decades, the ice was home for Colleen Jones, a consummate curler and champion Nova Scotia was proud to call its own.
Really was a pioneer of new ways to bring our sport forward.
From the very start, her determination to win shone through, and win she did, the youngest skip to win a Scotties Tournament of Hearts title at the age of 22, a streak that didn't stop.
I think the team has improved in every sense of the word. We just keep learning. We really respect each other a lot and what we can do.
Jones and her teams would go on to become 6-time Canadian women's champions and 2-time world champions.
I remember being a young curler and watching her and looking up to her, and she was always so helpful to me and engaging and really a friend.
She last appeared in a national competition at the Canadian Mixed Tournament 2 years ago, but also passed on her skills as a coach in later years.
Let's go find stories.
Jones was also welcomed into the homes of countless Canadians through their televisions, never afraid to put herself out there.
Oh my God.
As a longtime sports commentator and always enthusiastic broadcaster and reporter for CBC.
It's just in my soul, you know, and I love it.
Tributes are now pouring in. Curling Canada writing in a social media post, quote, "Your legacy will forever endure on the ice and in our hearts."
It's tough. It's tough in the curling community. It's tough on her family, and I'm sad. You know, I knew she wasn't well for the last little bit, and to hear the news today, it breaks my heart.
It's so many emotions, and you're not ready for any of them.
That's Jones describing the feeling when she was inducted into Canada's Sport Hall of Fame in 2016. Just one accolade among many, including the Order of Canada. Colleen Jones was a spark that lit up the sport and a country. She leaves behind her husband and 2 sons. Jones was 65 years old. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
And that is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada showcases White Rock, BC, Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario, and the Bow River in Banff, Alberta. Please keep them coming. Send your pictures of Canadian pride to Global National at globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.